Hey Sam, we've known for several days now that the Collingwood Football Club has an interest in Jack Silvagni. Have they officially tabled an offer for him?
So it's a 4-year deal, which is essentially the almost identical deal to what he's been offered at Carlton. Now, the money might be slightly more, but both offers are in the mid-600s per season. Both 4-year deals, so no trigger for a fifth, which we thought may have been the case. But the interesting thing here, Lordo, is that what it means is if he was to leave Carlton and play for Collingwood next year, it wouldn't be about the money. So that paints a reasonably dark picture about, I guess, the frustrations in the playing group at Carlton right now.
So his belief, would it be around the environment or his chances of playing in finals again, a premiership?
All of that.
All of that, yeah. And what about his relationship with Dan Houston? Does that come into it at all?
I don't think so. I mean, Dan Houston and he are still very close mates. Houston initially wanted to go to Carlton when he was leaving Port Adelaide, so I don't think that would have anything to do with it. I will say I wouldn't be surprised if another club came late after seeing how this is transpiring, because Jimmy, as you know, finding solid key defenders at that sort of market rate is quite rare. So maybe a Sydney or a Western Bulldogs or someone that needs a key defender.
I just looked at it. Billy Frampton, Charlie Dean, Jeremy Howe
retiring.
So I can understand why they're going after him.
Craig McCrae, the coach, Sam, he's always open when asked about these questions in the media. He doesn't volunteer the information, but he does engage when he's asked, and he did so on this topic recently.
I've said openly many times about openly looking at for free agents. Unrestricted free agents is something that we want to continue to explore, and whether it's Jack or someone else, we'll step into that, and because we don't want to stand still. We want to be better than what we are now, next year, and we'll look at avenues to bring players in that we think that can do that.
You met with him? Would you meet with him?
I would meet with Jack, if that was something that was important to us.
A few weeks for this one to play out. Not certain he'll be playing in a Collingwood jumper round 1 next year, but I'd be very surprised if he's playing in a Carlton jumper. So it seems like he's on the way out. And just on that, I'm not, as much as I take his comments on face value, what he said after the game, there's no doubt that Charlie Curnow is still up for grabs, and there's a chance that he doesn't play for Carlton next year. So I think depending on what happens at the end of the year with Michael Voss, depending on what happens with assistant coaches, there could be more movement than just Tom De Koning and Jack Silvani.
What sort of offer, though? It would need to be one of the great offers to move Charlie Curnow out. So you lose De Koning, say, you lose the Silvani. Like, it would have to be something of the highest, sort of one of the best deals you've ever seen in football. So that's where I think it'll be pretty tricky.
So they've got the whip hand, Carlton, because of his contract. Yeah. But what we saw with Melbourne, who we'll get to in a second, last year, shows, Jimmy, that if players become disillusioned to the point where a Petrarca and an Oliver want out but then don't, like, you're rolling the dice a little bit with your culture.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm with Lloydie that you just don't blow it up for nothing. You've still got to get full market value or as close to as possible. You're not selling Curnow 30 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, Curnow, De Koning and Silvani would be three of the most popular players in that locker room, by the way. So to lose 2 of them would be significant. To lose 3 of them, I think, could be pretty chaotic for what happens at Carlton next year. Welcome back to Footy Classified. It was another win for Collingwood, who, it must be said, Matthew Lloyd, needed it. They were challenged by the Tigers. But you've been asking the question now for several weeks. Have they come back to the pack, or is it just the lull that they need before September?
It's a great question. I've always been one for it's a marathon, not a sprint, so you can't be up the whole time, and sometimes it doesn't matter how you win, you just got to win ugly. But their last 3 weeks, they have come back to the pack, so we hit, but Craig McRae has had some interesting things to say about the training phase they're in.
Because we've got a 6-day break into a 5-day break, and Jared Wade, who I rate the best I've ever worked with, we won't train much in that 6 days and 5 days. So the last 2 to 3 weeks we've been training hard, and we've been doing stuff that we think that will stack up, later. No, I'll never make excuses as a coach. That's just part of what we have to do to be the team we want to be, and hopefully again that serves us later on. Time will tell.
Hey Sam, I was really shocked with the start against the Suns. It was a really good second half, and then, unlike Collingwood, to lose from 22 points up in the last quarter against Fremantle, and then I just thought they got caught a lot against Richmond. So Richmond applied the heat and pressure, and guys like Steele Sidebottom were getting caught uncharacteristically. So I want to see if it is a training block, which they'd have that belief that it is, or have teams been studying how they ping off halfback and how can you stop their run and carry and spread and put pressure on this forward line, Damo, that to me isn't a star-studded forward line, it's a workman-like forward line.
Yeah, and they've been managing the availability of players too. We saw Bobby Hill and Jordan De Goey get through a VFL match on the weekend. We expect Bobby Hill to come back in, and hearing Craig McRae talk like that, and as we look at what they've got by way of opponents in their run home, it's certainly not the easiest draw, particularly those next 3 matches, but let's give them that round 24 game. So they're going to have to still probably win every bit of 3 of those games to be guaranteed, of those hard games, 3 of the 4 games to be guaranteed the spot they've currently got, the top spot.
And as you can see at the bottom of your screen there, they take on the Brisbane Lions at the MCG this weekend, who were taught a little bit of a lesson from their crosstown rivals, the Gold Coast Suns, and the 2 coaches had their thoughts after the game.
Every good side I've been a part of gets a kick in the nuts at some stage. Today was our kick in the nuts.
Yeah, it is hard to stay up every week. Gold Coast had the similar thing happen to them last week. How you reflect on it really is how you react next week and how you play next week. We got a pretty hard game, Collingwood at the MCG, but I'm confident our group will respond. They normally do.
And it was the midfield, Jimmy. So I'm a bit concerned about McInerney. So going into this final series, I think he looks banged up. I know he hasn't played a heap of footy at times, but he looks, I don't know, like father time's caught up with him a little bit.
Like he's coming towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end he got Jared Witts gave him the ascendancy and the midfield suffered as a result. So I'd expect a big response from that midfield of Brisbane this weekend.
Yeah, a bit of both, Lloydie. I think they got beaten in the ruck, but I also thought that was a reflection on Jared Witts. I don't think we speak about him enough as a high-quality ruckman. You hear Max Gawn, when every time he goes against Big Wittsy, he goes, he's one of the more difficult matchups. He's strong, he's incredibly tall, and his palm work down to his midfielders is first class.
It certainly is, and it makes sense now why they're going so hard for Sam Draper, doesn't it?
Oh, he'd be a big win for them. My understanding is that the Bombers have up their offer for Sam Draper to see whether he will stay. So, as again, like Wanganeen Miller, the longer it goes, though, the more you'd be concerned.
Or if they up their offer so that the Lions will go again and up their offer and make sure that they get that first round compensation.
For the secret herbs and
As
spices.
we know, I knew I'd suck Damo into the secret herbs and spices. It doesn't take long to dangle the bait out there. Hey, speaking of the Bombers, obviously a disastrous night, which you were part of, which we'll get to later in the show, on Friday, and things just went from bad to worse against the Western Bulldogs. A pre-game interview, however, with their chief executive, Craig Vozzo, Lordo, he still remains bullish short and medium term.
I know I spoke publicly about an aspiration to play finals this year, and it was going to get back, in my eyes, quite honestly, to the growth of our 22 to 27, 28-year-olds. You need probably 7 or 8 of your best 10 available most weeks to be highly competitive. That hasn't happened through the year, and a number of those guys are in that age bracket. So that has hampered our outcomes, and I'm still aiming to rise up the ladder as quickly as possible and to make finals. So I wouldn't be ruling out anything.
So you were quite bullish after that interview, that you loved hearing that.
Well, I don't think the club's been aspirational for a long time. So I've heard, and I think the players can seep in that every year the players hear that it's not their time, or we're very young, it's next year, and you can start to believe it. And I've just seen it a fair bit with the way they play the game. So I liked hearing him commit to it. I can't see it personally, but I love that they've seen to it. So you're only as good as your senior players. So off the back of merit, knows Nick Martin, it's about what the rest of them can do to support Zach next year.
What are some of the things you didn't like from what you saw on the weekend?
Well, the 126 marks that the Western Bulldogs took, I was staggered by the first quarter. And to me, it looked like an intra-club. That's how soft I thought Essendon were, despite the injuries, which I feel sorry for Jaden Laverty. He's got no Mackay, Ridley never plays, who went out in this game too, and then young Archie Roberts, who's having a wonderful season. Jimmy and I were doing the game together, and Jim, the whole 50 was there like it was back in the 80s and 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're being nice saying the whole 50. It felt like half ground with a one-on-one, and just some of the fundamentals of the game were disappointing for Essendon. Got a big summer to work on some of those skill execution areas of their game, and then taking the ball forward. The positives are they found a couple through the mid-season draft which can put some pressure on guys who are already on the list.
The Dogs' record against the top 8 teams is obviously the concern, and it's been the narrative all year. They've lost a couple of those games, Jimmy, by narrow margins. Are you confident, or should they have belief that they can actually overturn what they're doing against the better teams? Because we can see what they do against the lesser lights.
Yeah, they certainly get a hold of those lesser lights, as you touched on there, Damo. And I think I've referenced this in the last couple of weeks. They've certainly got the talent. So they've got a decision to make, whether it's structure or personnel, I think, behind the footy. So whether they give themselves a little bit of cover at stoppages or contested situation, or they change the personnel behind that. I think they'll maybe adjust their structure a little bit, give them a little bit of cover, just so then they can still play that attacking style of footy.